Hi, fellow Django developers. Hezekiah here from alwaysdjango.com, where we discuss interesting Django topics that helps you grow, improve as a Django developer. So, if that sounds interesting, like, subscribe, share this video with anyone you think will find this video important. Let's get into it. So, in the last tutorials in our Django Complete beginner playlist, if you don't know about that playlist, go and check it out. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Right? We had this out. We had this result here. We discussed Django URLs and views, right? So we had this here, and I mentioned that in Django we don't have this here. We don't have our views in the same file as where we have our URLs. It's bad design it's bad design process, it's bad design pattern, right? So that introduces us to a concept in Django called apps, right? So in Django, this that we have already is not an application, right? It's not an app. It's simply a project, right? This is a Django project, but not a Django application, right? So to explain that, in most softwares, right, in most web applications in this instance, we have different sections of a website, of an application, of a software application that completes its components, right? So we have different components that makes up our complete software, right? So for instance, for a web application will have the accounts and users component, right, that will manage everything about users and their account, and manage something like registration of users, logging in of users, forgot password processes, activation email processes, and what have you, everything about users, right? We'll have section like maybe if we are building a software for a school, we'll have the teachers application and students application. Teachers application will handle everything about teachers, maybe creating a course, creating a topic, creating a subject. Then the students aspect of the application, which we call app, the student app of the application of the project. Sorry guys if I'm confusing you. The student app of the Django project will manage everything about the students, right? The teacher app of the Django project will manage everything about the teacher, right? So this application approach is really interesting because, like, if you have maybe an application in this Django project, you can simply copy the application, simply because our applications comes as folder in Django, right? So you can simply copy the application from this Django project and go to this Django project and just start working, right? Maybe you have a user, you have made an account and users application in this project, right, where you have a custom Django user model, and you want to use it in another application. Instead of doing what you have done already in this project in another project to speed everything up, you can simply copy this app you have on this project you have worked on already and go to another Django project, right? So let's see how we can create these applications, right? So here, to create this application in Django, we say python manage.py, like always, start app, right? So after this start app, you give it the name of application. For like I mentioned, that we'll be creating a mini project, right? During this playlist, we'll be creating a mini project that will be storing, that a user can store a book, and they can store books and maybe get the book back and maybe sell the books on the website, right? So we start an application and call it books, right? We call it books, and this will manage everything about our books, create books, delete books, list of books, and so after creating these apps for our application, we are not done, right? We need to tell Django about this application. Right now, Django doesn't really recognize this application. We need to register this application into our project, right? So that when running things like migrations, we'll look at that and when we are discussing Django models. When running things like making migrations and running migrations, our application will recognize this application, our project, right? I'm sorry, I get these words confused and mixed up sometimes. Application and project. Our project, which is the whole stuff, the whole thing. Our project will recognize this application, recognize its models, its views, its admin.py file, and like do what it has to do with them. So to register this application right now, we'll go to our settings.py file. We'll open this folder here, this folder that has the same name as our project name. We'll open this folder here in settings.py file. We'll come here. If we come here, you see different variables right here. You see the base URL, the base there. You see the secret key. You see the debug type. You see the allowed host. Then here you see installed applications. So this is where you install your application or register your application in my own word. So to register your application, all you really need to do is in a string or as a string, enter the name of your application, right? The name of our application is books, right? So this does not change anything. Our application still runs. There is no difference. But right now, Django recognizes this application as one of the applications in this project. Every application has models, right? So let's go to this application folder, right? So every application has models. Every application has models. It has views. It has tests. It has apps. It has admin.py. That's init.py, admin.py, apps.py, models.py, test.py, views.py, right? So this models.py, let's start from the beginning. Init.py is simply an application that lets Django recognize this folder as a package, right? Where we can import stuffs from, where we can import classes, functions, and what have you from, right? Then manage.py. Manage.py is used when we get into the Django, admin.py. Sorry guys, admin.py is used for when we get into the Django admin panel, the Django admin backend. We'll get to know this, but this is simply used to register a model into the Django panel, Django admin panel, right? So we have this apps.py, right? So this apps.py is simply used to configure this application, right? It's just like a configuration file for this application we created here. Then the models.py, this is where the models for this application will be stored. And if you don't know what models are simply class representation of a database table, right? So the class representation will create classes here. These models.py file will contain classes, and these classes will be a representation of what a database table will look like, right? If you don't understand what I'm saying, just subscribe, turn on the notification if you haven't already. I will explain better, right? We'll get to learn these things piece by piece, right? So test.py is just a file where we can have our test. If you see here, we have already imported django.test. We import test case. So this test.py we simply house our test functions, our test classes. But in this project, we'll not be looking at test. If you want us to discuss test, leave a comment in the description. Tell me to make a video on testing in Django, and I'll do it. So views.py, right? Views.py, this is where our views will live. So like we said, we don't create our views here, we create it somewhere else, right? That somewhere else is this views.py file. So every application has views.py file, every application has model.py file, etc. So every view that is related to this application may be a view that handles deleting of books, creating of books, listing of books. We go into this views.py file for this application. Every model, every database table that is related with books, maybe a database table of books, then that books we have maybe author database table that is related to the books. Maybe an author will have a book, or a book will belong to an author. So every table that is related to these books application will be in this models.py, right? So this encourages the separation of concerns, right? You break down a modular kind of approach to what you are doing, right? So break down different parts of your application into separate pieces, then put that pieces together to form, break down different parts of your project break them down into different folders, into different applications, then put them together to form your full-fledged software, to form your full-fledged web application, right? So this is, I just said let me explain this because it's like a concept that is a little bit not understood very well amongst young Django developers. They be like, why do I need a separate folder always? Why do I need a separate folder? Why can't I just have all my model classes in one model.py file, right? So in this project also, we'll be looking at creating and using a separate URL. If you check here, there is no URL.py file, but if you think about it, I think every application also should have a URL.py file that handles the URLs for a separate application. So Django does not come with that on its own. We'll create it here in the future tutorials. We'll create a URL.py file. Then every URL that is related to books will go into that URL.py file. I will see how to connect that with this URL.py file, right? So let's copy this view that we have here. We cut this view. Let's go back to the views.py file that is in our books, right? Let's paste this view right here. Let's paste this view right here. So it's saying HTTP response not found because it's not imported. And if you can remember, if you watch the last video, we put it from Django.http, we import the HTTP response, right? We'll copy this, go to our views.py file, we'll paste this, right? So back here, this application user is not defined, right? Because we copied it and it's now here, right? So we have to import it into this URL.py file to be able to use it. So we say from books.views import user, right? Books.views. What is book.views? This books module, right? Like I said, init.py file is used to make this file a package, right? It's used to make Python say, okay, I can import stuffs from this place, right? So books, this books package, the views, this views file, import user, import this user. That's what we are saying here. From books package in the views file, import this user. So that's what we are doing here. We are importing this, right? So and we are using it right here. So let's run our I'm very poor at talking and typing at the same time. I'm sorry. Run server. So let's run our development server and see what we have, if this will still work. And hopefully, fingers crossed, everything should be working and it will not break, right? So we'll go to /user, right? And everything is working as expected, right? But right now, the only difference is that we have our views.py. Maybe we'll call this, this will not be user anymore. This will be book. Of course, this view is related to books. So we no longer import user, we import book, and we say book right here. We also say book right here, right? So this URL for this book views, this book application, this book app, right? So we'll go back and change this to book. Sorry guys, book, and we have this again. We should also probably change this to all books, right? Let's do that. Change this to all books, right? So go back, refresh again for the last time, all books. So this is it for me guys today. In the next tutorial, we'll be looking at rendering. I mentioned in the Django URLs and views video that will be looking at how to render templates to the URL in the next video. But I now thought about applications and I said let me discuss about apps in Django. So in the next video, we'll be looking at how to render templates, how to use HTML templates in our Django project. So this is it for me guys. If you are not subscribed already, subscribe, turn on the notification. Take care of yourself. Have a nice day. Peace.